folks, we have a great show for you today. I'm sure you've heard Nancy Pelosi took a trip to Taiwan, which seems to be upsetting China as they've told her not to come. We'll talk a little bit about that and George Soros' recent op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, why I support reform prosecutors. Justice or safety, it's a false choice. They reinforce each other, he says, which is the exact opposite what Republicans are saying, blaming him for funding prosecutors that are weak on crime. We'll talk about it. I also want to talk about something fascinating because in the world right now, Democrats and Republicans disagree on a lot. One thing they seem to agree on is that China and Russia are massive threats. Even while right-wingers combat the domestic policies of financial backers like George Soros, they somehow agree with him on similar foreign policy, like how right-wingers say that China is the greatest threat to America, and George Soros says China's Xi Jinping is the greatest threat that open societies face today. So what's going on?
Folks, this breaking down of the international and national norms is the glue that holds the liberal world order together.
Why is the Biden administration talking about a liberal world order?
At this summit, we rallied our alliances to meet both the direct threats of Russia poses to Europe and the systemic challenges that China poses to a rules-based world order.
Sustainable. What do you say to those families who say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years. This is just not sustainable.
Well, what you heard from the president today was a clear articulation of the stakes. This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
And the Trump administration. Here's Mike Pompeo saying it as well.
The first 2 years of the Trump administration demonstrate that President Trump is not undermining these institutions, nor is he abandoning American leadership. Quite the opposite. In the finest traditions of our great democracy, we are rallying the noble nations of the world to build a new liberal order that prevents war and achieves greater prosperity for all.
I'm going to break down a concept today that a lot of people don't understand, which is the liberal world order or open society or democracy or American rule and its allies, whatever the left wing or the right wing wants to call it. Even though a lot of right wingers think that it's communism that's happening in the West, that global version of communism is threatened by national communism of China and their allegiance and alliance with countries like Russia that won't completely play ball with the quote-unquote liberal world order. It's going to be a great episode. We're going live now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Appreciate you so much for being here. I want to talk about later in the show. I hope you stay tuned because it's not going to be that long until this part. You know, these are names that you wouldn't normally put in the same bucket. Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, George Soros, right? Dan Crenshaw. These are people that, you know, they are very different in their domestic policy on the left and the right. But one thing that everybody seems to agree on is that China is the biggest threat. You could find George Soros' rhetoric is very, very similar to the Republican Party's rhetoric. And I want to talk about why I believe that is. And I'll just give you a little brief so I don't have too much of a cliffhanger rather. You know, global communism or global democracy, if you're listening to the right, they'll say, you know, we have these great allies and we're spreading democracy. And if you listen to the left, they say the same thing, but a lot of people will accuse them of trying to basically do like a one world order of communism. But you have to understand that even though China is obviously not our ally when it comes to this, they are a different brand of communism. People think, well, why does the left wing not like China if they're communist and they're communist? But if you want global communism, you're going to see a threat in national communism. China is not playing ball completely with the liberal version of it. So that's kind of the face-off. You have like Russia, China, Iran, and others versus this degenerate Western version of like whatever we pretend to do. And obviously I live in America, so I root for my team, but I'm just being honest. I'm not like pro-China or anything. I'm just going to give you an unbiased breakdown of how I see it, and we'll see if you agree. First thing I want to talk about, I printed out right here. This is the Wall Street Journal. George Soros himself wrote an op-ed. How old is the guy? I'm not sure. And I'm curious if he writes it himself or he has a ghostwriter. but he wrote an op-ed that says, "Why I support reform prosecutors, justice or safety, it's a false choice. They reinforce each other." Before I read his own words, obviously the right wing will tell you that George Soros is funding prosecutors, far left-wing prosecutors, they'll say, and he's a huge reason for the crime spike in these major cities that we're seeing. Obviously, George Soros himself and left-wingers will probably tell you the opposite. We're not raising crime. In fact, it's the opposite. We're just putting in, prosecutors who are defending justice and giving people a fair shake. So this is a pretty important topic because as we've seen in America, it's no surprise Los Angeles is getting less safe. New York City is getting shittier. The whole country is really kind of declining in many ways. In many ways, I'm grateful, but you get what I'm saying. We all see it. So this is, I think, a pretty important article into the mind of George Soros and why he keeps funding these prosecutors in his own words. Obviously, people have their own opinion of why he's doing it. So here's his article. I'm just going to read. This is George Soros in the Wall Street Journal. Americans desperately need a more thoughtful discussion about our response to crime. People have had enough of the demagoguery and divisive partisan attacks that dominate and debate and obscure the issues. Like most of us, I am concerned about crime. One of government's most important roles is to ensure public safety. I've been involved in efforts to reform the criminal justice system for more than 30 years. I have been a philanthropist. So, this is always what they're doing all over the world. It's like philanthropy. We're just helping so much. And if you disagree, they might just call you an anti-Semite or a racist or a sexist or a climate change denier or a COVID denier. They have a word in the media to basically shut down any opponent of like left-wing policies. But, I'm just reading the Soros article after that. That was just my opinion. But, he's doing 30 years of philanthropy. Yep, that's exactly what it is. Eye roll, hashtag eye roll emoji. Anyway, back to the article. Yet our system is rife with injustices that make us all less safe. The idea that we need to choose between justice and safety is false. They reinforce each other. If people trust the justice system, it'll work. And if the system works, public safety will improve. We need to acknowledge that black people in the U.S. are 5 times as likely to be sent to jail as white people. That is an injustice that undermines our democracy. I'm going to read, I don't want to read the whole thing because it's a little boring, but, here's one part. He says, some politicians and pundits have tried to blame recent spikes in crime on the policies of reform-minded prosecutors. The research I've been seeing says otherwise. The most rigorous academic study, analyzing data across 35 jurisdictions, shows no connection between election of reform-minded prosecutors and local crime rates. In fact, violent crime in recent years has generally been increasing more quickly in jurisdictions with without reform-minded prosecutors, Murder rates have been rising fastest in some Republican states, led by tough-on-crime politicians. So, without boring you too much, this is George Soros' opinion. There's racism and injustice in this country, and actually it's the opposite. If you put in, tough-on-crime DAs, then crime still rises. Here's what I'm going to say, because you're going to have right-wingers say it's George Soros and his big money, dark money, whatever, or not dark money that goes into it that is causing all the crime. You're going to have George Soros and left-wingers say, what are you talking about? It's not causing the crime. I might shock people with my opinion right now, but I'm actually going to agree and disagree with both sides and tell you that I think they're actually both wrong in many ways about this. And here's my example that I'm going to use. If you have a town of 1 million people that are moral, you could have the worst DA, you could have the worst police force, you could have no police force. But if you have a bunch of godly, moral people living in this town with a bad DA, a far left-wing DA, crime is not going to rise because moral, godly people who aren't psychopath, degenerate demons don't murder, attack, elderly people, bash people in the head, rob stuff with guns all the time. That doesn't happen in a moral society. So I'm actually going to break the mold of the Republican and liberal conversation around this and say, you could go to the south side of Chicago where the crime rate's high. You could give them the greatest DA in the world, give them a Republican DA that's tough on crime, and give them 10,000 police. There's still going to be murders because people there are demons. You know what I'm saying? They're doing degenerate murders and stuff that's just so ungodly evil. It doesn't matter how many police officers or how many prosecutors there are, you're not going to be able to stop it. You might be able to slow it down if you put like 3-time murderers in jail instead of letting them out on the streets. But regardless of what George Soros or right-wingers say, it's like a false conversation. I listened to the Nelk Boys podcast with Andrew Tate, who's been going viral recently, and he made a great point. He said he's half black himself, so he's not being racist. But what he noticed about Romania, even though Romania is an extremely poor country, there's like no crime. Women can walk the streets at 3 a.m. And Andrew Tate, who happens to be half black, ask the people in Romania, why is it that they can walk the streets and they're not afraid? And the Romanian men say, well, Romanian men would never hurt a Romanian woman, so they feel comfortable. And Romania is filled with Romanian men, people that have loyalty to their own ethnic group, people who have, not in a racist supremacist way, just they see themselves in those people. They see their sister, they see their mom, they see their girlfriend or wife, and they don't want to hurt their own. That's just, I'm not saying that's how it needs to be. I'm just saying that's how it is there. And in general, it's an extremely Christian country where they actually have godly moral values. So, you could put in a terrible DA there or a great DA. You have godly moral people there, so poverty doesn't lead them to bashing in the skulls of elderly people and raising the crime rate to something that is worse than a war zone in Afghanistan. So, without spending too much time on it, I think America has lost its morals. They've lost our values. It's not a Christian nation anymore. It's like a degenerate, BLM, LGBT, like left-wing country where we don't have the godly morals we used to. And I do think that a good DA will lower crime. I do think that being too soft on crime is bad. But in general, it's like this is like a psychological experiment. You put millions of godly, moral people who don't do this in a town with 0 cops, there's going to be no crime. You have the best DA in the world in a shitty town with shitty people, just to be honest, who do really demonic things, and you put 100,000 cops there and you put a bunch of DAs, you're going to lower crime, but it's still going to be worse than the godly, moral area filled with decent people. So, a country's only as good as its people, and our country is a mess right now. We don't have the loyalty, the morality, or the godliness of some of these, European countries that still have low crime rates. It's not a poverty issue. It's a moral issue. It's a cultural issue, and it's, self-governance issue. To be quite honest, I see all these activists who are talking about this and that. I'm willing to talk about the police. The police can be corrupt in many areas. The government is extremely corrupt. The food and drug. I'll talk all day with a black activist and be like, dude, I agree with you on 98% of what you're saying. I'll call out the corruption. I don't mind you talking about my ethnic group. It's great. I think we need to talk openly about it. But here's what you won't mention, and no black activist seems to want to bring to the forefront, which is if you go to certain Asian communities, no matter how poor they are, they don't just beat up, attack, and kill their own on the scales that people are doing in black communities. So we can talk about the police, we can talk about white people, and we can talk about billionaires, but when are you going to talk about self-governance in your own community and the evils and demonic behaviors that are going on, where it's not just you're attacking white people and police and everything, it's like black people killing black people at astronomical rates, 0 loyalty, 0 community, and it's going to perpetuate for the next 1,000 years until people address this accurately. So if you care about saving lives, this isn't the only crime in America, but I'm just being honest. It's like I look at some of the highest crime rates and who's dying, it's black people dying, and I don't want black people to die because I'm not a hateful person. So, we got to talk about self-governance because we could talk about hard prosecutors, soft prosecutors, and it's a part of the equation. But really, there's no excuse for the lack of loyalty in the black community. If you don't want to like police officers, I don't care. If you don't like white people, I don't even care. It doesn't bother me. But it's like the real problem is the hate within the community and the lack of loyalty to each other, which you do see in certain countries, but you don't see in America due to not only all the diversity, but just people that are, for some reason, so nasty and evil. I'm not saying the only way to do it is with that, but we don't have Christian values. We have people angry at each other. There's so much racial tension in this country. But when you look in these communities, it's not like, other races killing other races all the time astronomically. It's within that community, like lack of loyalty, lack of love, and lack of community, which I don't want to see. So, I'm going to break the mold of the left wing and right wing out of the kindness of my heart because I do love people and I want to see crime go down. Yes, a good DA can help. George Soros can debate with Fox News all they want, but to me, it's just a distraction from the concept that, yes, we should have decent police and decent DAs and prosecutors, but at the end of the day, self-governance is important, and America is lacking morality, we're lacking God, we're lacking unity, we're lacking national unity since we all are diverse. I'm not the same race as half of my audience, so we don't have that in common, but that's okay. What do we have in common? Do we have God? In many cases, no. Do we have a nation? Are we from America? Can we love the flag? We got to figure out something to come together over, have honest conversations, and get to the core of what's going on, because it's a lot deeper than just the people in Washington. Our own communities are suffering because our mindset's wrong. Our culture has gone totally towards hell. And, there's data around the world that proves that poverty might increase crime, but it doesn't need to be like so murderous and disgusting and immoral. So we got to govern ourselves and be honest, because the government's not coming to save us, and neither is either side of politics, in my personal opinion. With that being said, I want to get to something interesting, which is despite how often Republicans and Democrats fight, despite how often the big bad Republicans on Fox News call out George Soros, they're so on your side. Despite that, it's like they have almost a very similar foreign policy to him when it comes to Russia and China. And I'm not even knocking it. I understand why. I'm going to be very fair about it, but I'll just show you a few things I printed out. Here's Fox Business. This is from, I think, February. Soros calls out China's Xi Jinping as the greatest threat that open societies face today. Soros says China will use Olympics to score propaganda victory in a system of strict controls. If I were to read you that quote, that blank said that the greatest threat to open societies face today is Xi Jinping, you might think it was Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, Dan Crenshaw, or Mitch McConnell. You know what I'm saying? This quote is pretty much interchangeable with right-wingers. He's very on the same page when it comes to China and Russia. Here's another one. Soros said in February, allowing Putin to succeed on his quest will send a message across the world that nations can simply be created or dissolved by brute force. We must stand with Ukraine as they stand for us. So George Soros, very similar to Dan Crenshaw and many, Republicans on Fox News. Same sort of thing. And what happens when you criticize George Soros? Everybody knows they call you an anti-Semite, a far-right anti-Semite, because George Soros is a billionaire who funds his political ideologies in our country and others, but if you talk about his financial influence, you must just hate all Jewish people is what they'll say. Of course it's not true. Of course it's not Jew. No, of course it's not true. Of course, thousands upon millions of Jewish people disagree with George Soros' ideology, but, that's just the game they play, just like if you attack the somebody, or rather counter somebody in the LGBT movement and what they're doing to kids, it's like now all of a sudden you hate everybody. These are the games they play. So why did Vox call Putin a dog whistle to anti-Semites? What did he say? Let's read this. This article's from 2018. During President Trump's bizarre press conference with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Putin invoked an odd name in trying to evade responsibility for the email hacking of the Democratic National Committee. Hungarian-American billionaire George Soros, who happens to be at the center of a far-right conspiracy theories around the world. In a response to a question about election interference, Putin brushed off allegations that the Russian government was involved. He compared the company that allegedly gave cover to Russian intelligence agents to George Soros, essentially arguing that an individual company doesn't represent Russia, just like how Soros doesn't represent America. So that is a far-right anti-Semitic dog whistle, according to Vox News. And that article just reminds me of how for 3 years, Democrats were trying to say that the election was illegitimate. There was election interference. It was for an election. It's not fair. It's like, listen, I don't even agree. I'm just being honest. I'll tell you what I think about the election. I do have my questions about it, but I don't agree with what people are just following Trump like he's the Pied Piper and just repeating what he says. It's like, I understand that there are certain people being sloppy with their reporting. However, this idea that Republicans are not allowed to question the election, yet Democrats can question the election, this is so blatantly fake, and everybody knows it. That's why it's like, shut down the Republicans questioning the election, but we had 3 years of questioning the election. And I'll have to say, the Democratic media was very sloppy with their Russian interference allegations. Many retracted articles, many lies, many exaggerations, many, overhyping of Facebook reach that didn't even equate to like 1 week of my reach. They're such liars. So whatever. But a long story short, now that we get into it, I'm going to talk about China, Pelosi, and Taiwan in a second. But I do find the overarching theme of this fascinating, of like, why does someone like George Soros, who's so different from Republicans, why do they have very similar foreign policy when it comes to Russia and China? Well, the first obvious reason is this. In the world, you have to make allies, right? Not all your allies are going to be perfect. They're not all going to agree with your domestic policy. But in a world war situation, whether it be World War I, World War II, or the beginnings of World War III, which hopefully will just be a financial slash, pseudo war. Hopefully we don't actually fight. I don't think we will, but who knows? You have to align yourself with somebody. You don't want to be alone. So with this world war, although it's not breaking out physically, it might, because Nancy, big girl Pelosi's is, trying to really, put her foot metaphorically in China's plans and just, insert herself in the middle of Taiwan when they don't want her there. So in general, who is our ally as the American nation? I guess you would say, not Russia, not China, not Iran. These are countries that are against us. Russia, China, Iran. I'm sure you could name others, maybe Venezuela. There's this, a lot of parts of Africa are starting to join. Belarus is with Russia. They're starting to form this anti-Western kind of allegiance of people who don't, even India kind of flip-flops. Sometimes they're with us, sometimes they're not. So we're kind of forming this enemy in Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, and any country that kind of Belarus that follows suit with them. So on one hand, if you're American, whether it be someone like a Soros, who I guess allegedly is American, and Donald Trump, etc., this is your country, whether you agree with Republicans or Democrats or, wherever you fall on the spectrum of politics, this is still your country and the country that you operate out of. So it's natural for the right wing and the left wing to agree that China and Russia is a threat to America, because they are a threat to America. So on one hand, this is harmless and it's just natural. This is what Democrats and Republicans used to be. Yeah, we don't agree on everything, but we do love America, and in world wars, we fight on the same side. So on one hand, it's innocent. On another hand, I do see what's going on in the world, and you have what I would consider Western communism fighting national communism in this unholy alliance of the communist state of China, Russia, and anybody who really will align with them. So people don't understand this. A lot of Republicans, no offense, they listen to too much lame media. All they do at Fox, not all, there's some winners there like Tucker, but it's just a lot of basic commentary, basic harpies yelling at you and screaming Pelosi. So a lot of Republicans think that, well, China's communist, so that must mean George Soros would like China. But George Soros doesn't get along with the nation state of China. He's actually combating them. And a lot of people don't get that, because they're like, well, communism, what? Why would they? It's just a show. It's a joke. They're lying. And it's no, I don't think they're lying. I legitimately think George Soros is countering Xi Jinping of China, because there's two different versions of what some would call communism, what some would call open society foundation, what some would call liberal world order, what some would call, Western democracy. Everybody's got a different name for it, but communism in China is more of a national communism. They're not interested in the style of communism that the West is pushing. They're interested in a nation-state communism where they are in control and where they are free to work with who they want, Russia, and kind of align themselves with them. Even though they have similar political ideologies, there's a big difference between a nation state of communism that China wants to lead, and perhaps China wants to lead the global version of communism where they have, massive control. They're now the superpower over America, so they get to dictate where it goes. And the left-wing degenerate form of communism, where it's a godless, open border, open society, completely unnationalistic, and nothing matters, and you just worship the government instead of God. And that's what's happening in the West. And I'm not sitting here saying China's better, because I'm not Chinese. I'm not from China. I have no loyalty or allegiance to them. I've never been there. God bless Chinese people. I'm not a hater. I love my Chinese brothers and sisters around the world. But, when I'm talking about the governments of two, I have zero loyalty to China. Let's keep that in mind. But I do see, it doesn't mean that the West is, great. I mean, what I think they're building in the West is a different version of communism than China. I don't think China's interested in diversity. I don't think China's interested in mixing their ethnic group and letting China get taken over by another ethnicity. They're not. They're interested in Chinese people in China. It's called national communism, right? They have communism, but they're extremely nationalistic. What the West is pushing with our allies is godless, borderless, nationless, raceless communism. And on one hand, it could be good if everybody got along, but that's not what's happening. It's not happening in Europe. It's not like crime rates are disappearing. I would say crime is up in Europe. Crime rates aren't disappearing in America. It's not like we're all getting along holding hands. They're just kind of like scrambling everybody together, telling them that God's not real and that, their kids should be drag queens. And then if you disagree with them, you're a racist or something. Like, this isn't a holy version of like Christian communism or anything. This is like godless, degenerate, immoral communism being pushed by the West. And people are starting to figure out why they're doing what they're doing. I need to preface this with, because people need to understand, I know my audience gets it, but I have to be very clear. It's like, I actually see the beauty in every culture. I'm the furthest from a quote unquote racist, like, oh my God, no, dude, I love music, I love food, I love culture, I love like history, I love Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, Chinese philosophy. I think everybody deserves their history, their culture, and their race. Like, I see the beauty in everything. So I'm the furthest from somebody who thinks like no ethnic groups should be here or something. It's like, it is what it is. Like, I didn't run America for the last 100 years. We're here, I'm here, you're here. We deal with it, and it is what it is. But there's so much beauty out there, and all I have is love. But I am going to tell you the truth about what they're doing and why they're doing it. If there are certain ethnic groups, like say in Romania, they're mostly Romanian and they're mostly Christian. Why aren't they as degenerate as America, even though they have poverty and corruption? For those two reasons. If you take away God, you take away God out of the black community, you take away God out of the white community, you take away morals out of the Hispanics coming in and take away their Christian roots, you mash everybody together and tell them that their race doesn't exist, except for when it does exist, when you're using it to tell that person they're bad and that person they deserve this, and just pissing everybody off, right? Not like one nation under God. It's like one nation, but we're not racist, but we're not going to allow Chinese people into our school, and there's too many white people here, and we need black people to have segregated graduations. And like, this is what they're pushing, the left wing in America. So it's like, it's not like they're doing all this diversity to help us. And I'm not saying there's no pros to diversity. I think there are, but it's like how the West is doing it. They're not doing it for our best interests or for world peace. They're doing it to take away everything from everybody, So it's like, there will be no more cultures. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you go to Koreatown, you go to Koreatown for Korean food. You go to America for America. You go to France for France. You go to China for China. You go to these countries to experience their unique culture. But what the West is doing with their degenerate communism is taking away everybody's culture. They're taking away black culture and replacing it with this whole new rap culture that's not even real black culture. They're psyoping the whole black community into shooting themselves in the foot, metaphorically and literally. They're psyoping the white community. Like, it's like this big thing where it's like, everybody get rid of God, everybody be gay, everybody transition your gender, everybody think that families are bad, everybody, disagree with borders, everybody get rid of your nation state. Yeah, we used to all come together of all races as American, but now the flag is bad. Everybody come together, get rid of your family, get rid of God, get rid of your sexuality, and you can be a part of the liberal world order together. That's the type of communism that they're pushing in the West. So it's not this like amazing diversity to help everybody. It's a big mishmash to throw everybody together, take away your family, take away God, take away your private property and your constitution, and then you will worship the government. There will be no more diversity of food and diversity of thought. There will be just a bunch of people that have no unique culture or identity that just suck off the government teat because you won't have anything else available. So that's what they're doing, and it's very tricky to talk about because if you try to combat it and you're not well spoken, they're going to call you racist or sexist, but it's like their words mean nothing to me. I could do a show in front of 50,000 people of every race and everybody loves it. I could speak in front of millions upon tens of millions of people and everybody gets it, from Nigeria to India to, America, to from the south side of Chicago to Compton. Like, you're not going to frame me and lie about me, because nobody's going to believe you at this point. I've already reached enough people. Real recognize real. And this is a human issue of what the global elites are doing to all of us, sucking out our family, sucking out God, sucking out our culture, and trying to piss us off and rattle us all and then throw us together and make us mad. That's why it's so important to not be angry and not be hateful. Whether you're white or black in this little race game they're playing, they want you to hate. They want you to be angry. Once you're hateful and angry, they can manipulate you based off your emotions. So call it out, be righteous, don't cuck to the, global establishment, but don't let them make you be a hater, because they actually want you to be hateful. They want you to be angry and nasty and violent. They want all this division. So the best thing you could do, speak facts, speak the truth. You don't have to cuck to what everyone else is doing. You don't have to cave to the, corny left wing and right wing, but don't let that hate get in your heart, because God made all of us, and, everybody's experiencing this from a different angle. Whether you're from Europe, whether you're from America, whether you were born black in America or born white in America, you're experiencing the same psychological manipulation in a different way. And people got to understand that, they're trying to get us to hate each other. So you got to, stand firm in your beliefs, but don't let the hate seep into your heart, because then you become emotional, angry, and that's when they can manipulate you and point, and they love that. So the best way to combat it is with truth, with facts, with love, but, blunt honesty, I believe. So now that we've established that, that's the version of liberal, one world order, democracy, hodgepodge, whatever, that they're pushing in the West. And this is why Russia and China are our natural enemies at this point. And I am pro-America. I love America. I still believe in our Constitution, and I still believe that we can get out of this and become the greatest country in the world. But when you look at Russia, their leader is authoritarian. They have their downfalls. They have their flaws. I'm not a Russian guy, but Putin is like very pro-Christian. He's not bowing to all the LGBT stuff. He runs a little bit more of an iron fist. And, he's not caving to the complete idea that there is no such thing as identity and everybody has to be everything at all time. And, there is no gender. Like, he's not caving to that. Russia is one of the stronger nations left that that actually likes themselves. Like, they have an ounce of nationalism where they're like, yeah, I'm Russian, I like Russia. China's the same way. They're communist, but it's national communism. They're like, I'm Chinese and I like China. I'm not saying that's necessarily great. You can make a decision for yourself, but it's incompatible. China and Russia are incompatible with global, godless, degenerate communism. I mean, Russia's not godless. I would think that, China is godless, you know what I'm saying? So maybe they fit in a little bit there. But as far as their nationalism, you can't have nationalism in the system of like nothing exists, there are no borders, it's an open society, it's a liberal world order. So there's this natural kind of fight going on, and it's really sad because in our country, obviously we love our country, but and I don't hate myself or anything, but the West sadly is not the moral, we don't have the moral high ground. And this is my personal perspective. I don't know that I could prove this, but I think America, when we were godly, when we were righteous, when people believed in the Lord and people acted like it, and there was respect and there was more loyalty and morality, I think America had the moral high ground in the world. And I think we were blessed by God, and we were blessed just because our actions were better than a lot of the world. We became very moral for a long time, I think. And once we lost that, I don't think we have the moral high ground we used to. We're still better in many ways. I think the Constitution's great. I think we still have a lot of great people here and a great culture. Like, I'm not ready to throw America out. I love this country. I will defend it. But, we've lost this moral high ground. We're not the same nation we were in a godly sense. Like, we're one of, no offense, culturally the most disgusting nations on earth. And I don't say that with pride. I love America. It's just true. It's like, you look at, the Middle East, if we're the America we used to be when we had like morals and values, we could look at, certain Islamic countries and say, hey, get your shit together. This is a mess. But now, where like our big thing is like Republicans and Democrats want to go to Saudi Arabia and tell them that they need to be more gay and more friendly to gay people. That only works if our country's functioning properly. If our country's functioning perfect and we have a moral high ground, then we can maybe go over to the Middle East and tell them, maybe you guys should try something different and be nicer. But our country is a absolute mess. It's like kids are more depressed than ever. Doctors are cutting up little kids because they think that they're a different gender. People are on pharmacy pills. Like, our nation is culturally disgusting. So why the hell would you support a bunch of pseudo-Christian Republicans, like most of the Republican Party, like marching over to Palestine and Saudi Arabia and telling them that they have to be more like America when it comes to LGBT? That is the least Christian and least American thing you could possibly do. Because actually, people don't know this, but Christianity used to be very similar to Islam. They're different religions. I'm not saying they're the same, but Christian nations used to have discipline, morality, and actual people following rules like Islam. Islam is the only religion left that actually still follows their rules in their nations. Not all of them. They're not perfect or anything. There's still a lot of liars that disrespect God. But in Islamic nations, you can find people actually following it. There's only a few Christian nations left that actually follow the rules of the Bible. So I'm just saying we don't have the moral high ground. I'm not somebody who's a self-hating person, but when our country is great again, then we could go tell people that they could change their rules. But we're going over to an Islamic country and telling them to do something that's completely against the Bible that we are failing at, and the slippery slope is happening in America because we are failing. Focus on ourselves, fix ourselves. That's what's going on. So I think, we need to fight for our country and fight for, democracy or whatever the hell we pretend like we're doing. But to me, the real way to beat Russia and beat China is to get back to our roots. When America was the greatest country, when it was the most free and the most prosperous, everybody wanted to come here out of envy. Like, they would leave China and Russia to come here because it's like, wow, this is better. And we still are better in many ways. I love this country, but we're starting to lose that. People are starting to flee to Mexico. People are fleeing from Mexico to America, and now you have Americans fleeing to Mexico because they're tired of all the restrictions and BS that we're having to deal with. So we got to focus on ourselves, in my opinion, and then we could better take on these countries. But until we have the moral high ground from God, we're going to continue to suffer. And before I end this live stream and get to a few questions, I just want to talk about what I believe is the main force driving the left-wing ideology and right-wing ideology. And I've said this many times, they're leading to the same place. I know people dislike me because I say this, but, if you want to look at who's driving the left-wing outside of what I'm about to say, it's like Big Pharma is, all driving left-wingers. It's like, oh, mandate, mandate, mandate. And then the right wing is like controlled opposition. You have a vaccine salesman leading the party telling you he's so different from the rhinos, acting like a rhino, endorsing Dr. Oz, putting a bunch of deep state and pharmacy people in main positions, and putting on a big clown show. Oh, I endorse Eric. Oh, but they're both named Eric. Let's laugh at that for 2 days. Trump is a professional clown at this point. It's a big circus, and he finds a way to make people giggle and run circles around each other without addressing the fact that he's a vaccine salesman, and as the left wing does this, he's running around selling the product as they're mandating it. It's like a big game, and people can't figure it out. But outside of the big pharma stuff, you have the left wing. I believe, after reading the Communist Manifesto, I believe that the left wing is moving towards communism. People like Klaus Schwab, people like Joe Biden, whether they admit it or not, they're moving towards less private property, less individual freedom, more government oversight, and more government swallowing up every sector. That's what communism is. Communism isn't Karl Marx and all your friends holding hands and splitting the money. If you actually read the book, the tenets say, religion's a threat, no godlessness, borders America, they're not a big fan of. Private property is one of the main tenets of communism, to not own private property. If you don't own private property, who do you think gets the property? The government, guys. Oh, we hate Donald Trump, says the left. Then why the hell would you want to give Donald Trump the power to not allow you to have your own private stuff? You saw this in 2020. Privacy went out the window. Ownership went out the window. Running your business went out the window. I believe that the left wing is moving towards communism, complete control of communications, transportation. That's what this censorship is. That's what everything is. So now that we've established that the left wing is moving towards big government, away from the Constitution, away from your freedom to defend yourself, speak freely, and be American, what is the right wing, right? Everybody thinks the right wing is pushing all this like nationalism and Christianity. I don't think so. I mean, they're doing it more than the left, But the right wing, in my perspective, in my research, and I'm not saying this from a hateful perspective, just a factual one, the right wing's main tenet and principle and philosophy is Zionism. It is, Zionism first and America second and Christianity third. You know what I'm saying? That's my most accurate portrayal of the Republican Party. They prioritize Zionism over anything. They will funnel money to Israel, pass speech laws for Israel, make it illegal in certain states for you to question Jewish billionaires. Like literally there's speech laws on the books that say that it's hate speech to question people like Soros or Zuckerberg or make connections that are there. So if they believe that before the First Amendment, then they must put Zionism over Americanism. Why do I think they put Americanism over Christianity? Because I don't even think they're really Christian. I mean, I think they're a bunch of fake Christians. They think the Bible's hate speech. They'll ban, Bryson Gray before they ban someone transgender. And I'm not saying they need to, but they're an open tent for liberal ideologies, and they're a closed tent for Christians who believe Leviticus in the first part of the Bible. So they are clearly not Christian. They want to go to Afghanistan and, Palestine and Saudi Arabia and tell them to be better to gay people while they can't even control the LGBT movement in their country. They'll do business with big pharma before they tell you the truth about it. So I look at I would say the top three things that the Republican Party is. They're Zionist before they're anything. They're American before they're anything after that. And then they're Christian. They're definitely more Christian than the left, but they prioritize two things over their Christianity. And that's so obvious when you look at how they do business and how they do international relations. And here's the thing I want to say about all that, because this isn't hate speech. I've never said anything bad about Israel, or I'm not like I got thousands of people who watch me from Israel. You can rewind. It's not like I actually compliment them. Like one thing that Israel does that America doesn't do is in Israel and Ukraine and other countries, it's actually you have to denounce your foreign citizenship in order to serve in the Knesset, which is like the Israeli government / Congress. So if you're an American citizen and an Israeli citizen and Israel elects you to office, guess what you have to do? You have to give up your American citizenship. If you're a Russian Israeli and you win office, you have to give up your Russian citizenship. You get what I'm saying? They want to make sure in Israel that you're loyal to Israel over Russia. They want to make sure in Israel that if you serve in the Israeli Knesset, that even though you're a dual citizen, they want you to denounce and get rid of your American citizenship in order to serve. Why is that? We're such great allies, right? I love, Israel and America, we're great allies. But even they have the common sense and decency to understand, yeah, we might be allies, but you can't serve two masters. So if you want to serve the Israeli government, you have to get rid of your American passport and citizenship. In America, the opposite is true. There are dozens of dual citizens in Congress. And here's the crazy part. You're not even supposed to talk about it. It's status quo. Dr. Oz is a citizen, I believe, of Turkey. He has a Turkish citizenship. Trump doesn't care. He seems like a liberal celebrity, whatever. Let's put him in Congress. But in general, in America, not only are you not allowed to talk about it, they're passing speech laws through both parties that say that it's actually hate speech, anti-Semitic hate speech, to suggest that anybody has dual loyalty in America. If you say that about someone Jewish, that's called anti-Semitic hate speech, and it's being passed into legislation by Trump via executive order and by even DeSantis. DeSantis flies over to Israel to pass American speech bills. This is a fact, folks. People don't know about it because nobody talks about it. And when I talk about it, they try to ban me from events because they don't want anyone to talk about it. Why? Look at who their donors are. But don't talk about who their donors are, because if you figure out who their donors are, you just violated another hate speech operation. And it has nothing to do with hating an entire group of people. That's such a fake narrative. And you know these people are phony because when Israel's suffering, when they're being force vaccinated, when they're being triple injected or else they can't go to a McDonald's in Tel Aviv, and everybody in Israel, like a lot of the citizens are, crying about the tyranny, I'm the only one talking about it, and all of these Zionist Republicans who take a bunch of big donor money to pass speech laws, all of a sudden, they don't care about Israel anymore or Jewish people. It's all a front. A bunch of these Republicans, they just use and exploit Jewish people in Israel the same way the left exploits black and Hispanics. Do you really love black people, or are you just throwing up a power fist so you can raise $100 million and leave their community in shambles? Saying you like something doesn't mean it. I don't have to run around and call everybody haters all the time because I explain exactly how I mean. People in Israel probably respect me more than most Republicans because when push came to shove and they were being terrorized by tyranny, I'm doing reports and trying to help the people, and all these Zionist Republicans who take big donor money from people who want to pass speech laws, all of a sudden they turn their back on you, probably at another donor meeting, trying to suck up more money so they could sell America out to a foreign country. That's on God. So in general, not in Israel, you can't be a dual citizen to serve in their Congress. In America, not only can you do that, you can't talk about it because Republicans are passing speech laws. Why? Because I just told you the top 3 things of who they serve. It's the same reason why I think they're American businessmen over Christians. That's just a fact. So why do I have an issue with that? Some people will misconstrue it and say, oh, you must hate this country. I actually don't. You must think they don't have a right to exist. I actually do think they have a right to exist. You know, history is filled with conquest, and it's not my business. It's just like Russia and Ukraine. I think Ukraine has a right to exist. I think Russia has a right to be pissed. I don't think I'm the god of... Sorry about this. Hold on one second. I don't think I'm the god of society where I can determine who can do what. I do think everybody has a right to try what they want. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But long story short, the reason I have an issue with it is the same reason Israel and Ukraine have an issue with people having dual citizenry. They're not hateful. They just understand you can't serve 2 masters. So in America, this is just my perspective. Sorry. I don't dislike... Sorry about that. I don't know why my camera's like spazzing like that. But in America, it's like, I don't hate Islam, but America was a Christian country. So if we became an Islamo-Christian country, it has nothing to do with disliking Islam, but as a Christian, I would rather it be a Christian country than an Islamo-Christian country. Because if it's an Islamo-Christian country, you just put the word Islam in front of Christianity. So that doesn't make sense to me. That would be like calling it a liberal Christian society. It's like, yeah, you just put liberal in front of Christian, now the Christian's gone. So that's how I see Judeo-Christian. I don't think it's the same thing. Like, you have all these phony Republicans, like, that's all they say. Judeo-Christian, Judeo-Christian. I have nothing wrong with Judaism, nothing wrong with Islam, nothing wrong with Christianity. Either we're a Christian nation or we're not. And we're not because the left wing is going full communist and the right wing are Zionists. They put Jewish in front of Christian. That's just what they do. So it's like, what are the difference between the ideologies? I don't know. Read the Bible, read the Talmud, read the Zohar. You can figure out the differences. It's not the same religion. It's not a, sorry about the focus thing. Hold on one second. I'm going to take it off. It's not a hateful thing. It's just reality. It's like either we believe in that or we don't, and we don't. So now we have a controlled out party pretending to care about your best interests when they're literally superseding the Constitution and laws in order to make the Bible illegal. That's just what it is. Listen, I don't hate homosexual people. I don't hate anybody of any race. I don't hate anybody of any religion. But the Bible says what the Bible says. And I don't believe the Bible should be restrained by speech laws. You could look at certain parts of the first half of the Bible and say that is homophobic. And now the left wing could pass a speech law that says the Bible's homophobic. We need to outlaw it. You could look at multiple parts of Revelation in the Bible and you could say that it's anti-Semitic. Even though Jesus was Jewish and there's a bunch of Jews in the Bible, it's not anti-Semitic, but the Bible does say, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. They need to understand that I've loved you too, which I took as, there are some people who say they are, who are not. And God said, I need to let people know that I love all my children, not just you. You're being selfish, and I'll make you of the synagogue of Satan. That's what the Bible says. It's not hate speech. It's just a message. But that technically could be considered hate speech under speech laws that Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are passing into legislation. So that's why I stand against it, because one, it's unconstitutional to, say things are hate speech, but also it's definitely not a Christian thing. Like I read the religious laws that all these Republicans are passing. I actually read them. They don't help me. They don't help my race or my religion. I'm just being honest. I don't need help. But if I don't, why does everybody else get everything? The indigenous people, this, that, we're passing religious laws for Islamic people and Jews, and you can't talk about non-religious Jews. It's like all these speech laws, I'm reading them all, and I'm like, Literally, it basically just says everybody in the country except for me gets special, you can't say that, but you could just say whatever you want about me. It's like, that doesn't seem very fair. It's like all or nothing. Everyone gets protections or no one. And here's another thing. I don't think hate speech laws stop hate. Like, just to be completely honest, I think the biggest, if you are Jewish in America, like many of my followers are, your biggest threat is living in a city where the crime is going to come from people who are not even Christians. It's like, stop Asian hate. Yeah, Asian people are living in high crime areas of shitty cities, and their elders are getting the shit kicked out of them because there's a bunch of demons there that have zero respect for your culture, your heritage, or themselves. So they just attack, steal, and murder. So it's like, I'm not being hate. It's like, a speech law is going to stop Jewish people from getting hurt. No, it's the opposite. It's like, Jewish people are most at risk in America if they live in the same neighborhoods they grew up in New York City, because the neighborhoods they grew up in aren't safe anymore. Their areas are not safe. That's what's affecting Jewish people and Asians in this country the most when it comes to violence. It's not speech. It's not someone's opinion of George Soros. It's not somebody's opinion of Ralph Nader or somebody that has that's not what's going on. Of course, there's bad people out there and there's violent people, but for the most parts, it's the cities where, these people are least safe. That's just a fact. So I don't do this from a place of hate. I don't do this from a place of anything. I just do this as a little presentation to show you why the left wing seems to agree with the right wing. On one hand, it's because China and Russia are natural enemies of America. We've formed this allegiance, this ungodly allegiance to the West, and we're taking on the national communists of China, which is not compatible with our communism, and Russia, who doesn't play ball with NGOs or all this godless degeneracy. So we're fighting them. And it makes sense that the left and the right unites to stand with our country. What doesn't make sense is the fact that the left has become completely godless and immoral and literally the opposite of what is right to do in almost every facet of life. And the right has prioritized two things above, their religion and their constitutional values. And it's incompatible, unfortunately, with actually being somebody who defends your people. The Constitution doesn't work if you put a foreign country over what the First Amendment says. The Constitution doesn't work if you take $100 million from a donor and then say that you're not allowed to say certain words because it's hate speech. It doesn't work that way. It has nothing to do with hate. And other countries around the world understand this, but America doesn't understand this because the level of conversation happening is so basic. Yesterday it's Donald Trump endorses Eric, but they're both named Eric. Ha ha ha, Eric. It's funny. Donald Trump is hilarious, but that's the level of conversation. Well, who is it? Donald Trump's such a funny guy. Ha ha ha. Let's run around the country selling vaccines, cracking jokes about Biden. And then Biden's like a degenerate grandpa. Pelosi is elderly, woman who probably gets too much plastic surgery. And everybody's just gossiping left to right, right to left. You're doing this, you're doing that. And it's true. A lot of it's going on. I'm still a registered Republican. I think they're the lesser two evils, and I think they serve a purpose. But, all the things I've mentioned from, racial tensions to the lack of God and the lack of morality, it's going to take more than a DA or a Republican candidate to save this country. People got to have conversations like this. People got to keep it honest, raw, and real. And ignoring this type of stuff is not going to lead where people think it's going to lead. One thing I hear in the conservative side a lot, because a lot of conservatives are just like, they're like, yeah, I just want like common sense stuff. And I hear so often, like when Roe versus Wade gets overturned, right? A lot of people are upset with that because there's a lot of pro-choice Republicans. There are. And people say, well, I want the conservative values and stuff, but I don't want to go back to like full-blown Christian roots, right? Why do I have to go back to full-blown Christian roots? And unfortunately, we don't have a million options right now. It's like either you close the slippery slope or you don't. So people don't really understand. It's like if you don't want to be conservative in our party and you just want this like pseudo-Republican party that just does a half-ass job of like big pharma sales, then enjoy the crime-filled cities. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy where this country is going. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun to be 70 years old in a town of where nobody gives a shit about you. You know, they put you in a retirement home and the people there hate you because they have no connection to you, and they're just getting paid minimum wage. Like, that's where this country's heading. So I'm not trying to be rude, but to the Republicans that say, oh, I don't want to close it, I don't want to go back to like a Christian country because, you know, it's like, can't we just do like a little bit of both and just be modern? It's like, modern is what we're facing. You know what I'm saying? That's where this leads. It leads to high crime cities. It leads to complete subversion of the children. It leads to depression. It leads to big pharma sales. Like, unfortunately, there really is no in between. I get why, you know, people might be pro-abortion. I get it. But it's like, at the end of the day, these are crazy times. What would you rather do if you had two options? Would you rather have sexual discipline and just not allow guys, or be a guy and allow yourself to have unprotected sex with a woman? Would you rather just, you know, display discipline and have more, you know, be more careful with your sexual pleasures? Or would you rather a city where nobody's safe, in a place that everybody's just fighting each other all the time and there's shit on the streets and, like, you know, tents and trash and homeless? Like, it's like, can you take a small sacrifice and have a little more discipline for the overarching theme of getting back to a nation where people believe in God, people believe in morality, and you don't need a police force to, you know, do all this stuff? People don't realize this, but it's like back in the day, they didn't need machines to, you know, metal detectors. They didn't need all this stuff. You know, there was less crime and all that stuff didn't exist. People had massive guns. You know, there weren't police on every corner. It's like, in a moral society, you don't need that. I'm not saying there weren't bank robbers and there weren't murders. They existed. There's always been bad people. But in general, it's like, we can't legislate this out of this country. So, you know, I understand people don't want to see it that way. And they're like, I'm liberal socially, but I'm conservative fiscally. It's fine, but this is where that leads. This is where, I get it. I used to feel the same way. But now that I'm seeing how the big picture works, it's like, you know, Republicans might as well be controlled opposition, because they're just gatekeeping the slippery slope and giving you a few more goodies, but they're afraid to talk about anything I just talked about. They don't want to get called racist. They don't want to get called anti-Semitic and sexist and all these sort of things. And it's like, you know, it's like, I get it. It sucks when people lie about you and say it, but if you're not coming from a place of hate, you just got to say it. You know, it's getting more popular, like traditionalism. People are coming back to God. People are realizing that sexual freedom is not the greatest when you're just doing too much. And, you know, it's like, it leads to mental issues. You're thinking too much. You have too many physical connections that drive you crazy. Like, there's this huge resurgence of traditionalism because people like my I would say generation, we grew up getting lied to. They lied to us about sex. They lied to us about drugs. They lied to us about, you know, pharma. They lied to us about, oh, this is what it means to be a college student. Do this, do this, do this. And yeah, it's fun temporarily, but really looking back on it, it's like I could have had way more fun drinking way less alcohol. You know, it's like we got lied to. And a lot of people, there's two different routes you can go when you're in your 20s and you're making wrong decisions when it comes to drugs, sex, drinking, you know, like culture, all this stuff. You go two ways. Either you spiral into depression, you hate yourself, and you just become unhealthy into your 30s, or you come back to reality and say, actually, I should probably take better care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually and grow up and be a better person. And that's why traditionalism's rising. It's because we've experienced a decade of the wrong decisions, and we've experienced 20 years of people just thinking things are going to get better naturally without actually working in this country. You know, a lot of people think they deserve the American way because it's America. We deserve freedom. We deserve liberty. It was earned. It was earned in 1776. It was earned in the 1800s, 1900s, 1950, 1970, 1980. People used to earn it. People used to work for it. And now we're all at this point where left-wingers just have no gratefulness for all these blessings that we have. And right-wingers think it's just guaranteed without putting in the legwork. So that's why we're losing it. And it's an easy fix, folks. We got to not only combat the degeneracy and immorality of the left, but understand that many people on the right are just being gatekeepers of the slippery slope going down. And with that being said, I'm just going to end it on this, and then I'm going to get to some comments. On one hand, I think Donald Trump did an amazing job to revolutionize culture, put a bunch of important yet unpopular issues to the forefront, and I think he deserves credit for his foreign policy and certain things that he did. However, I will say this, and people don't want to hear it, but the greatest politician is the one who convinces you that he's not one, right? Why was Obama so successful for so long? Because he convinced people that he was different. You know, if everybody thought Obama was going to be the same as Bush and Clinton and Romney, then nobody would have voted for him. But he convinced them. The greatest politician will convince you for 8 years that change is going to come and he's going to be something different. So keep that in mind with Donald Trump, because on one hand, he's earned his respect. On another hand, I think he's getting way too much credit for some of the atrocities that he did and some of the status quo pharma sellouts and you know, lack of really doing something. And that makes him, sorry about that, I don't know why that's happening, that makes him the most dangerous politician. Sorry, I'm going to come back in a second. I don't know what's going on with my camera. This camera's supposed to be the best camera and it just sucks. But, you know, that makes him the most... You know, what if he's not? Then you just spent 8 years, 12 years running around the guy who promised you the world and fell short. So I hope people are paying attention, because that's the greatest political trick is, you know, making everyone think you're going to be really, really different, even when you're proving that a lot of the things you're doing are very similar. Someone said your camera's drunk. It sucks because this is like, I got a nice camera. I'm always buying stuff and then it falls short, but whatever. All right, I'm going to read a few comments real quick and then we're going to move forward. Someone said, here's Harvey said, can everyone stop hating others for skin color, religious beliefs, or sexual preference, respect each other, and what if someone else believes in don't hurt you or your family, then do what makes you happy, spread love, not hate, respect, not judgmental, can't we all get along to unite our country and everyone be America first? I hear you, Harvey. That's definitely the path forward. Like right now, America is so diverse that that's the only option we have. It's like everybody's got to, you know, put their differences aside and do what's best for them, their family, and the country. But, you know, that would be the perfect world. Everybody understanding that's that. But here's the thing with the world. You see that certain places get that. Certain places, you know, become servants to God, and certain people restrain themselves from the evils, and certain places in the world, they just don't. You know what I'm saying? They don't learn the lesson. They don't believe in morality, and they just spiral. So now that America's this way, that's the only thing that's going to make it better. But what do you do when someone doesn't want to do that? And this is what, you know, the DA and the prosecutor kind of debate. Like, everybody deserves a chance, a second chance. But if you're bashing grandmas in the head and stealing their purses in cities all the time, like, dude, you got to go. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like, we got to figure out and draw a hard line against crime in this country. We don't do it, but let's be honest. If you were, say you wanted to go to the bad parts of St. Louis, the bad parts of Chicago, the bad parts of, you know, Louisiana, like there's some very high crime areas, New Orleans. How would you make it better? Let's be honest, right? Like, we all should get along. Like, nobody should have hate. There shouldn't be crime. There are massive pockets like in this country where crime is just crazy. It's literally like worse than war zones. How do you fix it? It would almost have to be like a military operation, because people are not willing to, you know, and it's not even like a racial thing where they hate other races. It's interracial violence that's happening there. What's going on? It's deeper than poverty. Culturally, these people are lost, and spiritually, these people are lost. So how would you fix it? Republicans aren't going to fix it, and Democrats aren't going to fix it. It would take like a military operation, because it's like a war zone. I'm not saying to do that, but it's like now everybody just ignores it. In LA, they just ignore homelessness. In New Orleans, it's a Republican, you know, state, but they just ignore the bad parts of New Orleans and Chicago. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to do anything about it because they don't know what to do. It's such a bad crime problem that it's like, you know what I'm saying? Some of these urban neighborhoods are terrible. So what do? Right now, everybody just ignores it and says, oh, well, at least I don't live there. And now what's happening? The crime is starting to grow and grow and grow. The crime is growing because technology is growing. Back in the day, it would stay there, but now people have cell phones. Now people have, you know, they're going to different communities. They realize where the money is. They realize where the cops aren't. They realize where the people are that aren't going to be paying attention. So now you have the crime starting to grow out of the cities, and, you know, nobody really wants to address it because it's a very unpopular thing. Like, you know, I think, and I'm not saying to do this, but I think it would take a full-scale military operation to clean up the cities. Like, you'd have to send in police with military gear. And I'm not saying I want that done. I'm just saying until something changes, Chicago's not getting better, New Orleans is not getting better, Los Angeles is not getting better, St. Louis is not getting better, and those areas are going to spill out into other areas, and those areas are never going to be prosperous. Like, and it's deeper than money. You could spend $1 trillion there. You know, I'm not blaming people, because some people, they're born into it. They don't have a father. They're buying into this culture. As a hip-hop artist who loves hip-hop, and I'm not a square, I would say that the hip-hop community and the people preaching violence and murder are more responsible for the violence in these communities than anything. These people grow up and their uncle's out there with a gun in his hand filming a rap video, and he's standing there listening to him rap on World Star, and that's the culture he knows. That's what they're teaching him. This isn't normal. There's other poor communities that don't act this way. So just like we got to call out cops, just like we got to call out, you know, people in the white community, we got to call ourselves out too, and we got to talk, you know, we got to talk honestly to these other communities and be like, yo, well, we can, you know, there is poverty, there is education problems, there is lack of resources, but you guys are terrible role models for your own. Most black celebrities are horrible role models for their own. Horrible, you know, in the hip hop community. Horrible. They're telling 5-year-olds to do this. The 5-year-old grows up, does that, ends up in jail, and now whose fault is it? It's like, dude, stop teaching them that that's cool. You know, we'll give money, we'll give resources, we'll build schools, but you guys got to play your part. And stop teaching people that this is a great way to live, because it's actually not. It's the reason that so many poor cultures are moving to America and running circles around everybody, because they come here. I mean, I have to give it to the Indian community from India. You know, India is not a rich country. Like, there are people who are rich, but there's people who are very poor in India. India's come to America with no money, and they crush. I mean, Indians are killing it in America. Why? They're not killing each other. They're not fighting each other. They come with no money, and they build and they read and they learn and they figure a way to make money, and then they move their family out here and give them jobs and stuff. They're what people are pretending to be in other communities. I'm just being honest. Like, people are like, oh, we're helping our own. No, you're not. The crime rate is astronomical there, and you keep making songs telling people that it's cool. You're actually killing kids. Like, I consider a lot of rappers, they're kid killers. They're you know, they just talk about drugs that are killing people all the time. Someone said you've never been to India. No, I haven't, but I'm just saying there's rich parts and poor parts, but people come to America with no money and make a lot of money. I'm not hating on India, and I'm not, you know, take from it what you will. I'm just saying there are people with no money who can make it in America and be poor without killing their own race. Like, that's not a normal thing, but it is normal in certain communities because that's all they talk about all the time. I come from the rap world, folks. I've lived it. I've done it. I'm not black. I'm just saying, it's like, I'm not a hater. I love rap music. I love the culture, but people got to start giving a better message. You know, that's a full scale. Like, I'm not going to run for office, but it's like, if I did, homelessness would be illegal. I wouldn't just hurt them, but it's like, listen, from now on, there's a new sheriff in town. You know, here's how we're going to solve homelessness in 3 easy steps. Here's a house. Go there. You know, here's a community to live. But the community to live is going to have a lot of security guards and a lot of cops, and you're not going to be messing around. You know, here's a place to live. Here's a place to get mental health. Here's a place to get a job. There's millions of jobs in this country. Okay, now here's the crazy part. Here's how you get rid of homelessness. It's illegal now. You have everything you could want, everything. Now it's illegal to be on the street. If you're doing heroin on the street, you're gonna get charged. If you're doing prostitution on the street, we're gonna bust you. If you're just sitting there and shitting on the ground, we're gonna get you. We'll give you somewhere to go, but if you don't go, you're gone, bro. It's zero tolerance. That's how you get rid of it. You know, not saying, well, no, we just gotta build homes. No. Yeah, just build a bunch of gyms. How come people are still fat? Because everybody doesn't listen. And here's the thing. You don't have to listen with your own personal weight. I don't care. But when it comes to the street, that's your property. You're just allowed to destroy a public park. Like, it's way too lenient. You know, this is why people are lenient on crime, lenient on homelessness. Give people what they need. Give them resources, school, education, mental health. But once that, you need an enforcement. Why do people get a physical trainer to work out? You don't need one, but why do people get one? Why don't you just work out yourself? Because when you have somebody pushing you to do it, you do it more, you do it longer. You know, even me, I love to work out. If I had a physical trainer, I'd be stronger because they'd push me. That's what I do to Trump. I'm pushing him to stop selling vaccines. Everybody just like sucks his like the dirt off his shoes because they want to go to Mar-a-Lago. It's like, that's not a good friend. You know, a good friend tells you the truth. A good friend pushes you to be better. Homeless people are not just there because they have no job. It's a lot of drugs, a lot of mental illness, and people allow them to be there. And here's the thing. Oh, Anomaly, you're so mean. You want these people to live in the real world and get better. Yeah, what do you want them to do? Die in the street every day? There was a report the other year that said that like homeless people are dying on a daily or weekly basis in LA. Dead from drugs because you guys incentivize it. You allow it. In certain cities, they're giving out needles so they could do heroin. You're killing these people. You're not a nice person. Oh, I just let them shit on the street and cause crime and kill themselves with drugs because I'm so nice. You're not nice. You're killing homeless people, you know? Believe in them. Some of them might not be able to turn it around, but a lot of them can. A lot of them are there because it's allowed. It's allowed on the streets. Make it illegal completely. Put a zero tolerance policy and justify it by giving people everything they could possibly need to get out of it, but get rid of it. Same with crime in these cities. It's like, dude, it would take a full-blown operation to make some of these cities, crime-free again. But here's what I would do if I had the power. I would do a press conference and I would say, listen, I would talk to every low-income, high-crime community and say, listen, I'm not your enemy. I don't hate you. I want you to win. This isn't a lifestyle for you. You know what I'm saying? I think so highly of you. I don't think this is your life. I don't think you should have to live here. There's people in America living in yachts, on boats. You know, there's people taking vacations. There's people who could walk down the streets and let their kids play. I believe that you could live that lifestyle too. It's the opposite of racism. It's saying, listen, I don't think this is what you want. This isn't what I would want, and this isn't what you would want, and this isn't what any moral person and any good person in this community wants. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to turn it all around starting today. So anybody involved in any sort of crime stuff, you're done. You know, it's going to be like a full-blown police/military operation. You're not getting away with it. But here's the thing. If you want help, we'll give you help. If you want a job, we'll give you a job. If you want education, we'll give you education. If you want resources, we'll give you resources. We're not going to baby you, but we're not going to just leave you stranded to be broke. We're going to help you. But from today on out, zero tolerance. It's not happening anymore because we will get you, we will find you, and we will make it so the millions of kids that have to play in this area don't have to have bullets flying past their face every single day. You could get rid of this shit in a month. It's not easy. It wouldn't be easy. But make homelessness illegal, give everything they want, but tell them there's a zero tolerance policy for drugs on the street, prostitution, and shitting in a public park, and go to every high crime city in the world and say, I'm not your enemy, I'm your friend, I love you, I appreciate you, I think you could win, I think you're better than this, but from today on, the buck stops. And you know what I'm saying? If you don't want it, and also, like, keep it real with these people. It's like, you're not threatening the banking system. You know, in a lot of these high crime areas, they're like, oh, it's the man. So how in the hell is beefing with your neighbor over gang activity, how is that fighting the system? How are you fighting the big bad white guy at the top of the pyramid when you guys are fighting over stupid shit all the time? You know, most of the murders going on in these cities aren't over, you know, some sort of big political issue. It's over something stupid and petty and basic, and everybody's got too much pride and ego. You know what I'm saying? So just keep it real with people and be like, listen, I believe you could do better. And what you're doing right now is just hurting your community, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop tomorrow. But here's the thing. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody's afraid of the south side of Chicago, rightfully so. It's a scary place to be for anybody. But it's like, you can't just solve crime with a DA. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we'll get a tough prosecutor. I mean, it'll help a little bit, but you know, there needs to be a whole cultural shift in this country, and somebody's got to do it. But that's just my free advice for any politician or mayor. You know, it's like, just be real. Put the foot down. Like keep it 100%. Broadcast it to the entire city. Let people know what time it is, and then do it. But tell them, we gave you every option under the sun. You know what I'm saying? We're not doing this because we hate you. There's nothing, they call it, I don't know if it was Thomas Sowell or one of these right-wing people, they call it the bigotry of low expectations. A lot of people consider left-wingers the most racist people in the country, racist, because they have such low expectations for certain ethnicities. They say, we think that like, you know, if I said I want to clean up that neighborhood because I think people can do better over time, it's not going to take a day, but it can happen. They'll say, oh, that's so mean. It's like, no, it's mean to think that people are meant, like God made you to just sit there and shoot your neighbor and live in a community. You know how many people are good? Like, I used to go to, when I was younger, I used to go to Brooklyn, to Bed-Stuy. And there's this one, you know, family that I met, and this one kid, he was, 9 years old, 10 years old, super young kid, Ronald his name was, and super nice kid. His dad was an alcoholic. He lived in the middle of the hood, but he was a great kid. You know, some of his friends were nerds. Like, it's not like everybody in the city, more people are good than bad in these cities. So it's like, I'm not doing this for, you know, to hurt people. There's millions of black kids that are, you know, nerds, and they just want to go to school and they just want to get an education. And unfortunately, they don't live in the suburbs. They have to live where they have to dodge bullet holes everywhere and keep their, you know, swivel on their head, because that's the city they live in. There's more good people than bad in all of these areas. You know what I'm saying? That literally have no way out because they were born there. So that's who I would do it for. I've met the kids where it's like, this kid has a future. This kid's smart. This kid is like a good kid and he's going to get out of here. But in general, the most racist thing you could do is look at a high crime area that's not safe to be in, where kids are getting shot every month, and say, oh, that's just how it's supposed to be. Oh yeah, that's just fine. You know, that's just poverty. That's just the situation they've been dealt. It's like, no, that's not okay. You know, I don't think it's good for a 14-year-old black girl to get stabbed just because that's how it is. Like, I think that stuff needs to stop. And I'm not willing to cover it up just because it wasn't the race you wanted to do it. Like, they're so racist, quote unquote, that they only talk about crimes if a white person or a cop does it. I mean, how could you show you hate black people more than covering up 90-something% of murders because it doesn't fit your racial, political, or police narrative? That means you hate them. That means you think so lowly of them and you don't care about them as people and humans that you're willing to literally not talk about most of the reason that people are dying, whether it be from food, diabetes, drugs, or inner city crime. You don't want to talk about any of that because it doesn't fit your racial or political narrative. I mean, that's some low level shit. Excuse my language, but that proves that you literally don't care about human lives. It's like, literally a black girl got stabbed 2 months ago. It was gruesome, but it wasn't really on the news that much except for New York Post. Why? Because it wasn't a white person who did it. It's like the liberal media only cares if they can exploit black people for their political agenda, where it's like, man, this stuff, like, you look at the crime in some of these cities, it's crazy. You know, people gotta put their foot down, but nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to act like, I mean, Fox talks about it a little bit, but it's like, you know, people need an ultimatum. It's just dragging on, and it's going to be a generational thing, and it's never going to get fixed. It doesn't matter how much money you dump in there. It doesn't matter how much gentrification you do, where a bunch of liberal white hipsters bring their yoga mats to New York City, and they're like, look, I'm doing yoga now. I'm helping. It's like, I mean, maybe it'll get a little safer, but at the same time, not really. You know, it's like, now prices are going to go up, and you're going to gouge these people out of better prices. But in general, you know, I say all this stuff because this is a conversation that's controversial that no one's having. If I didn't care about people, I'd just ignore it and go live somewhere, you know, that I didn't have to deal with anything. But it's like, I don't think people were made and God created people to have to go through this sort of stuff. Maybe we all have to go through it. Maybe everything's going to go to shit. I don't know. But, you know, while I'm here and while I have the energy to do so, you know, I hope to inspire people. Just like when I used to go to New York, it's like, I didn't just sit there and say this or that. I bought him a camera. I'm like, I believe in your talents. I want to help you with the resources I have, you know, try to make a difference, even if it's small. It's like, you know, that type of stuff means more to me than just like virtue signaling all the time and being like, the DA we put in will bring justice. It's like, the problems are a lot deeper than that. But let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna stay for maybe 10-15 more minutes and put some comments on the screen. Amy said, I pray for everyone on this day and for the world. Keep the faith and praise God. It will be all okay in the end. Forgive them because they are really lost. Pray for them. Absolutely pray. And you know, I'm just, I had a great convo actually on Instagram. There was a producer, he was verified. I think he likes my videos, and he was from Compton. And, you know, he was at first being like, yo, what you're saying is racist and anomaly. I can't believe you would say this. By the end of the conversation, instead of getting upset or angry or caving, I literally stuck to what I was saying. And by the end of it, he was like, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Because my message was a little harsh, but it's like, I was like, my guy, this is what I'm trying to say. And I'm looking at all this other cultures and stuff, and I'm like, this doesn't have to be a cycle. We can point the blame at other people, but at the end of the day, people got to self-reflect and figure out how they can make a difference as well, and not just skirt self-accountability. Because when you do that, you just keep repeating the cycle. It's like, oh, well, it's their fault. Yeah, there are a lot of people who are semi-responsible, but at the end of the day, I'm going to stick to exactly what I say and exactly what I mean. And by the end of it, he was like, oh, no, I get it. But this is a conversation no one's having, because are you kidding me? In the rap world, in the liberal world, do you think people are going to say half the stuff I said today? Of course not. They're all afraid, and they're all a lot of times just fake. They're like, they think things, but they're like, I'm just going to, retweet a Sean King tweet and Rachel Dolezal, It's like, yeah, that'll really fix the country, but whatever. Someone said my head stays on a swivel. It's a cold world out here. It's a crazy world. This country is getting a little wild, but it's all good. All right, I'm trying to take that off the screen. Let me see. Someone said Angels on the Sideline, also a Tool song. I'm not a big fan of Tool. I'm not like a hater. I just, I don't know much about Tool. Have I ever considered voting for no suitable candidate? What would you consider? Would you consider it ineffective? Have I ever considered voting no suitable candidate? To me, I'm not emotional about it, so I get, vote for who you want, but I do see that certain candidates are the lesser of two evils. So I still vote. This is my personal strategy. I vote, but I also don't just clap and say it's okay. I voted for Trump over Biden. I still think it's a good vote. I think Trump would have been better than Biden in multiple categories. And judges, etc., Supreme Court, these things matter, in my opinion, even if they don't matter as much as they should. So I still vote, but here's the thing. I'm different from other Trump voters because I don't just vote and close my eyes. And there's been this whole fan fiction off of Trump where it's like he's this leader that is this, he has a plan for everything ever, except for he always just gets fooled by his advisors. It's the dumbest thing. It's on one hand, his biggest supporters think he's the most foolish person in the planet who just keeps getting conned by Jared Kushner. On another hand, he's this wizard from, the land before time who's going to arrest all the pedophiles. So it's I don't see that as an effective strategy. I see that, no offense, a lot of the men pushing that are egotistical, pathological, and weak. It's a weak pathological mentality where they've built an audience around lying to a bunch of women, and now they just can't get away from the lie because their audience wants them to act like they're Harry Potter with some sort of insight that they don't really have, and mixing it with half-true information. So I still vote personally, but I think the Republican Party needs to be challenged, and they need to be held accountable peacefully, legally, respectfully, but the base needs to show they have a spine. It would be like if, your boss is being mean, but you just say, well, I'm not going to say anything. It's sure, but if enough of the, company stands up and confronts the boss and says, hey, here's how we feel, it's maybe you might get some results. So I still vote. People get it twisted too. I'm still registered Republican. I still vote. I don't see a single Democrat that I'd vote for in the future, in the near or far future. But I just don't think acting like a sports fan is going to change the country. And I think on one hand, Donald Trump has been the most interesting, hilarious, and revolutionary president. On another hand, he's the most dangerous because he's convinced the entire base that he's different from the rhinos, yet he keeps making actions like the rhinos. And I keep seeing all this stuff. People are like, but he said this, but he said this, but he said this. I'm like, yeah, he says a lot of stuff. That's Trump. DeSantis does things. Whether I agree with DeSantis or not, he does them, and then we can have a discussion about what he did. With Trump, it's a bunch of what he said. But anomaly, he disavowed the World Economic Forum in his speech, and he said he was going to fight them. It's but then he put a pharmacy lobbyist in, and he started selling vaccines. So it's I'm more interested in what he does than what he says. He deserves a compliment for 50 things he did great, and no one. But Also, he deserves to be scrutinized for all the rhino things that Trump did. But nobody wants to do that besides me and like 5 people in the influencer world. So it's become this like unpopular thing that no one wants to do. I get why no one wants to do it though. I like psychologically, it's like, you know, if it's team red versus team blue, who wants to start challenging team red? It's like, it's more fun to just go to conferences and hang out because it is fun. It's like, there's great people there, you know? But, and also on the influencer world, you got to understand, it's like, you know, this is how it's structured. Like on the left, how do you rise the ranks to the left? I don't know. Complimenting Joe Biden, going on The View, you know what I'm saying? Being like a degen or whatever. On the right, how do you climb the ladder? It's like you get gigs at CPAC, Turning Point USA, you know, PragerU, Daily Wire. Like these are big wigs on the right wing, right? Some of them are doing great work, don't get me wrong. But, you know, Trump is the boss. Like there's nothing better than being a right winger at Mar-a-Lago. Like imagine you get a picture with Donald Trump. That's like the golden ticket of the right wing, getting a meeting with Trump, you know, going to an event. So I think a lot of people are discouraged from questioning Trump because he does a great job of like sucking the entire base up. Like when Thomas Massey questioned Donald Trump, he said that Donald Trump called him and started cursing at him. Like Trump is, you know, he's not an easy person to disagree with. Trump is a businessman, he's an alpha man, and he is a strong leader, you know? But it's like, I get why people don't want to say anything. It's a lot easier to just shut your mouth, sell MAGA hats, make $1 million, and get invited to Mar-a-Lago. Like, you know, Trump doesn't do interviews with people who disagree with him. Like he does interviews with the biggest Trump supporters who would literally probably lick the dirt off his shoes for like $1, you know, a signed dollar. So it's like, it's this whole ecosystem being built where it's like, don't question him, only question the rhinos. And it's like, but he did rhino stuff. I'm not saying you can't vote for him. I'm not saying you can't be friends with him, but can we question that? Can we do journalism? Oh no, we don't do journalism anymore. That's very dangerous. Nobody wants to ask him these questions. I have a list of questions, folks, real quick. Hold on one second. I have a list of questions I want to ask Trump. I'm going to just say them personally because maybe somebody watches that knows Trump and likes Trump and maybe it'll work. Hold on, I need a sip of this. Sorry. Here's my journalistic questions that I want somebody to ask Trump. Hold on, my screen's like malfunctioning again. You could hear me, but I'll come right back. Hold on. Ready? Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, anybody that gets a Trump interview, here's my questions for Trump. Ready? Are you friends with Bill Gates? Did you give Bill Gates a position in your government? Sorry, I don't know why this keeps happening. I'm going to put it back. You know, Bill Gates claims, if you look it up, Bill Gates claims that Donald Trump offered him a position in the White House. So here's the question to Trump. Did you offer Bill Gates a position in your White House staff? Ask him that question. Are you friends with Bill Gates? What do you think of Bill Gates? Any of those questions will work, but most specifically, somebody should ask Donald Trump if he tried to hire Bill Gates for his White House because Bill Gates says so. Guess what? We don't know because nobody wants to ask Donald Trump. 99% of the Donald Trump base doesn't like Bill Gates. 99% of the Donald Trump base knows Bill Gates is not aligned with the MAGA agenda. But I personally believe that Donald Trump doesn't have the same view as his base. He's just a good salesman and a good distractor. He's a good circus engineer. I think he tried to hire Bill Gates. I don't think he dislikes Bill Gates nearly as much as his base dislikes Bill Gates, but I could be wrong. Only way we'll find out is if somebody asks Trump. Another question to ask him is, you took $1 million from Pfizer for your inauguration funds, and then you went from being a pharmacy skeptic to a pharmacy salesman, and you put a pharmacy lobbyist and executive for Eli Lilly, Alex Azar, at the head of HHS. Did the $1 million you got from Pfizer influence that decision? Let him answer. Follow-up question. Do you consider it a mistake to put a pharmacy lobbyist and a pharmacy executive at the head of HHS? Let him answer. Are you going to do it again? Are you going to put somebody like Joseph Lombardo in Florida, the Surgeon General? Will you put someone like that at the high levels? Or are you going to put big pharma people at the head of it? Let him answer the question. Here's another question. In 2019, Donald Trump, you passed an executive order for modernizing influenza vaccines, and you put together a vaccine task force and all this sort of federal big pharma collaborations on modernizing vaccines. Did that end when the COVID vaccines came out, or did that program just morph into, COVID vaccination from influenza vaccination? Is that, are you going to do stuff like that again? Pass executive orders for vaccines? These are great journalistic questions that nobody wants to ask Donald Trump. So I'm doing it because I don't need the fame or clout. I just want someone as a voter of him in 2020 and a potential voter in 2024. I want somebody to ask these questions because nobody's asked them. He also says that he never, he always did the opposite of Fauci. That's not true. He did 15 days to slow the spread with Fauci. He extended the lockdown with Fauci. He did a phase plan with Fauci. So I just want you, these are all great questions to ask Donald Trump. Someone said we already know the answers, you POS. Why are you so angry and typing in caps? I don't understand why you're so angry. I just want somebody to ask the guy questions about what he did. Is that not a good question? Like Candace or David Harris or somebody could ask Trump, right? Are you friends with Bill Gates? Did you try to hire Bill Gates in the White House? Google that. Bill Gates, White House, Trump. He claims that Trump tried to give him a position as a science advisor. I believe it. I think that happened. But no, we don't know. No one wants to ask. Sky Queen, calm down, lady. It'll be okay. You're like spiraling. Someone said national communism. It sounds like national socialism. Well, I don't think it's the same thing, but I think Hitler's worldview is different than Xi Jinping's worldview, but there's two versions, I would say. I mean, maybe more than two versions of communism, but with what Xi Jinping's doing, like he believes in nationalism and communism. In America, they don't believe in borders, nationalism, anything. So you got to ask yourself, like, is godless nationalistness, like no nation, no borders, no, is that better? Is that a better version than what China's doing? A nationless, godless, completely moralless version of it. Like both of them will fail, in my opinion. I don't think communism's a good system in either category, but I just don't know that we have the moral high ground at this point. But I'm not saying I think it'll work, because I still think that China's doing a different version of godless communism. But I just don't think communism is a good plan in any category. But you can make the parallels if you want. Let's see. Someone said, this is a good comment. Kelly said, I want to know if you're in a position of power, you should have to answer things like this. Absolutely. The left wing gives Trump bad interviews and the right wing gives Trump softball interviews. There's nobody asking him real questions. I'm doing this for a reason. Some people on Twitter say, Anomaly, you say the same things every day. And here's the thing, two things. One, I'm trying to push this out into the sphere because no one else will do it. So it's like I'm making up for the fact that 98% of the base refuses to do their job. So I'm doing it extra to make up for everyone not doing it. But here's another thing. I'm just finding it fascinating. If I sat there on Twitter every day and said the left sucks, Biden sucks, these same people that are saying you're saying it every day would not be like, hey, Anomaly, you're saying the same thing every day. They want me to say the same thing every day. They want me to be like other right-wingers and just say the same generic things every day. There's a ton of spam accounts that literally just say like corny phrases that they copy, paste, stole from another Twitter account every day. And people love it. So I'm like, are you really mad that I'm being repetitive? Or are you just upset that I'm being consistent on an issue that no one else is talking about? But I do it purposely. I don't say it over and over on Twitter all the time randomly. I'm doing it because I know I have influential people following me. I have Trump's former campaign manager following me. I have some of the most famous people in Congress following me. I have athletes following me, celebrities, people with hundreds of millions of dollars, people that are at the top of the Republican Party. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I have influence, and outside of like money and stuff, people respect me. Like when I go to these events, people that I would want to respect me respect me. People that, you know, don't like me, I don't care, but it's like the people that I respect me. They're following. They see what I'm talking about. So I'm not just yelling into the wind. I'm letting people know, some of the most influential people know in the Republican Party, I'm not a hater. I just want these questions asked. Why won't they ask this question? I'll tell you why. When it's all said and done, if somebody asked Donald Trump if he gave Bill Gates a position, I guarantee you he'd say yes. I do believe that Trump tried to hire Bill Gates as a science advisor. No one wants to ask him the question because they don't want to get the answer. It's the same thing with his vaccine sales. You ask Trump a question about the vaccine, it saved the world, it saved 100 million lives, it's the greatest thing in human history, you know. Yeah, people stop asking him questions about it because his answer is not what you want to hear. That's a scary thought for people to realize, that their leader is not on the same page as them. It needs to be asked, and I'm going to keep asking it. I don't care. I'm not afraid. Someone said you'll be banned at CPAC. I had red flags for the other event. I almost got banned from the last event, but I didn't. I'm very good at not getting banned from things. I'm very caring. You know, I'm not an easy person to get rid of. I'm not disposable. I'm not Andy's toy. You're not just going to throw me in the trash. I'm like, you know, I'm not walking out with my mouth closed. So, see, I don't know if CPAC would ban me, but I would not make it easy. I'm sure they'll let me, but I've criticized them before too. They did an event last year, and it was a masked event. We're the Republican Party, come to CPAC, where you have to wear a mask or we kick you out in Florida. Yeah, that's a perfect metaphor for why we lose. They tried to kick out, or they successfully kicked out, DC Drano and Fleckas, both my friends, because they didn't want to wear a mask, because they were humiliated to be at a conservative event where a bunch of people recognize them as fans, and they got to take freaking pictures with a mask on. That's pathetic. And it's not their fault. I'm just saying it's CPAC. CPAC, the Conservative Union, it did an event last year in Florida where they had forced masking. Yet I'm the bad guy for talking about it. Guys, I'm not trying to act like I'm so special, but I'm one of the few people that's not completely full of shit, because I don't know how to fake it. I don't have that switch in me to turn off how I feel for $50,000 or something. It's like, no, that's pathetic. As a registered Republican, I'm embarrassed that you did that. You should be embarrassed that you did that. Oh, but I'm the bad guy because I'm the only one who wants to talk about it. Oh, we all think that way, Anomaly. We want to get booked in the future. I don't give a shit if I get booked or not. You know, I'll get booked for something else. I'll do bigger shows somewhere else, you know? Whatever. Someone said, what does that tell you if they'll ban you? Well, technically it was Florida doing it, because they did it in Florida in a liberal city, in a liberal hotel. You know, oh, we did it in a liberal city, in a liberal hotel. Okay, why? Why did you... You get what I'm saying? Why would you host an event in a liberal city, liberal hotel? You want to see what Here, I'll show you in 2020. If I can do it, folks, I think they can. Ready? I'm going to download this video for you. Hold on one second. So CPAC is running events. This is why I don't care, because I don't need their stage. I mean, I would appreciate it. I would definitely put on a show. But I'll show you what I was doing a year before they did a forced mass event. I was in South Dakota doing a show for more people than are at CPAC without a mask on, telling people, you know, if they love America. Here, I'm about to upload it in a second. So in 2021, for some reason, CPAC chose a liberal, you know, hotel to do their event at, right? Hold on, it's gonna take me a second to upload this. Of course, it's probably gonna freeze. I shouldn't do this, but whatever. I need to fix this. Just give me a couple seconds and I'll do it. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate your patience. We'll get it cracking, I promise. Or we won't, and I'll just fail and I'll have to end the live stream. We'll see. Could go either way. I think I played myself last time trying to do this. All right, sorry about that. This is from August 2020 during the pandemic when everything was locked down.
Who here loves and appreciates the United States of America? Make some noise.
So that's me in 2020 in the height of the lockdown in August in South Dakota with tens of thousands of people without a mask on at Sturgis. If I can do that, why can't CPAC find a hotel in 2021 to host an event? It's because this is a Republican Party. They're just like lazy. You know, it's like, yeah, we're gonna throw an event for patriots in a Marriott or something, or some liberal hotel that makes everybody wear masks. Then cancel the event. You know what I'm saying? Cancel the event and host it somewhere that they don't have to wear masks. I've turned down multiple shows because they were trying to force me or the people to wear masks. I'm not performing anywhere ever where they're forcing people to wear masks. Never. But the Conservative Political Action Committee can't find a place in 2021 to host an event without masks? Of course they can. If I can do a show in front of 20,000 people in 2020 in August when literally the whole country shut down, then in 2021 you can find a hotel. They just don't care. This is like who they are. It's like, oh, let's ban people who talk bad about us. I'm not talking bad about them to be a dick. I'm talking bad about them because it's pathetic to force conservative influencers to force mask themselves in a freaking Marriott style hotel so they don't get kicked out by a security guard in Florida in 2021. It's so stupid. I'm like, I don't enjoy talking bad about people. I enjoy lifting people up. I'm like a musician at the end of the day. I like to just like have fun and chill. I'm such a chill guy. I'd rather just hang out. Every race, every religion, just be vibing to music. I don't want to but why am I more conservative than CPAC? Like, it's just stupid. It's so pathetic. I can't not talk about it. It's pretty funny. Someone said CPAC in Israel in 2023. I think they just did CPAC Israel. I think Ben Shapiro was just in Tel Aviv. My friend in Israel sent me a video, or tweeted a video, and there were like thousands of people there. I'm pretty sure they already did it. It's all do what you want to do. I'm just saying. Hashtag just saying. Appreciate you guys. Someone said anomaly. More people need to realize that Trump renewed the Patriot Act against patriots. There's so many things that happened. The Patriot Act, he didn't overturn that Obama. What was that thing called where they legalized propaganda? The Smith-Mundt Act. Like, at the end of the day, I had high expectations for Trump after I realized he was the real deal. And, he didn't do as much as people want to say he did. So, I mean, at bare minimum, it's not being hateful. It's just like, people need to question him. Like, don't just roll out the red carpet and be like, give him the White House again. It's like, no, ask him these questions. Ask him why he signed the Patriot Act. Ask him why he didn't overturn the Smith-Mundt Act. Ask him, if he's friends with Bill Gates and why he took $1 million from Pfizer. These are good questions. I mean, I love a good question. So hopefully this catches on. I'm going to be repetitive, but hopefully not too much. I don't want to annoy everybody, but I know people watch, so I'm like, let's get this to catch on, ask them some questions, then we can move on to other stuff. God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Appreciate you for hanging out today. This will be on Dream Rare Podcast, as always. Dream Rare Podcast is on Spotify, Apple Music, Podbean, and everything. But I'd rather you watch on Facebook or YouTube because they, to be honest, actually monetize it. And without that, it would suck and I wouldn't be able to be here. So thank you to guys watching on Facebook and YouTube. I'll be back soon. Check out my Patreon in the corner, patreon.com/raretalk. Guys, I just want to tell you real quick before I end, not playing the victim or anything because life is good and I'm appreciative, but I'm about to go to a funeral tomorrow. It's going to be my second funeral in 2 months, and I've been traveling as well. I've done multiple podcasts. I went to TPUSA's event, visited my family and my father and stuff, so it's been a lot of funerals, a lot of events, like the good and the bad. But it's been a crazy month last month. So for people on Patreon and people on Facebook and stuff, I'll get more stuff done. It's just I manage myself. I do all this, and I chose last month to do more in-person events, etc. So I will get to like live streams for Facebook people, more secret stuff for Patreon. Last month was just like extremely hectic from all angles, and I'm looking forward to this month hopefully being just like smoother and I could get stuff done. But it's all gravy. Appreciate you guys. God bless y'all, and I will be back very, very soon.